Hello everyone, Felix here. It's good to be back. I assure you in entirety that this image is entirely relevant to today's. Hold on. Let's see if it's on correctly. I have to double check because Streamlabs has been a little bit flawed recently. Anyway, there we go. We are good. We are live. Anyways, so where do I start? I guess I'll start from the absolute bare bones beginning. My introduction to the MCU was in 2012. Unironically, one of the first movies that I've seen in theaters, at least, that my parents decided to take me to the theaters. They decided, I guess this kid needs some exposure to the movies. All the way back in 2012, and they took me to see the Avengers, and I quite liked it. I was very out. I think that was my last. I think one of my later years of elementary school. I'm trying to remember exactly what I was in at the time. I very much enjoyed it, even if I had no real because it's ironic because my dad raised me mostly on DC. My dad is a big Batman fan. He raised me on Superman movies that we saw on TV, and but for the most part, I had little to. I had that was essentially my exposure to Marvel comics as a thing, as a series. Overall, holy shit, Team Fortress. Yes, I assure you, Dantioch, this is entirely relevant to Marvel's Thunderbolts. And spoiler alert, this is up in front. I have to change the title. This will be very spoiler heavy. I will be explaining the plot of the movie as well as reviewing it. Pace Dad. Yeah, he preferred DC, but honestly, I guess because of the environment of the Zoomer generation, I was perfectly poised to prefer Marvel instead of DC, mostly because of the massive success of the MCU. I later when I went to middle school, one of the first things that I watched was Captain America the Winter Soldier, which became one of my favorite action movies for a long while, comparable, I would say, to the golden greats of the 80s, such as Lethal Weapon and Die Hard, even. Unbeknownst to me, Winter Soldier was an unofficial adaptation of Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, which down the line made me into quite the Metal Gear fan. But overall, jumping forward many years, Endgame happened, and that was supposed to cap off what was essentially, well, besides a few missteps, despite the mass market appeal, the majority of the Marvel movies made up to that point were very, well, enjoyable. They were good. I felt something about them. I could care about these characters. I was invested in them. I, shortly after that, I watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and as shit as that show was, as much of a as it wasn't a good show. It was good, not by the writer's intention, which of course I elaborated quite heavily on with my stream. As it was not a good show. I like it purely because they made good characters by accident. Characters like Zemo and Walker, well, which of course I've heavily glazed in the past and feel no shame in doing so. They're entirely by accident, but simply by the writer's unintentional spite and hatred, one of the best characters to come out of the MCU, but they absolutely failed in depicting the characters displayed in that show as heroes, or even trying to make their intended villains to be sympathetic. Well, depending on your definition of villain. But overall, the only consistent products Marvel has put out post Endgame have been actually let's look at the MCU timeline as it is. Let me let's pull it up. Just to see which ones I've cared to see and which ones I haven't. Which ones Avengers Doomsday Phase 6 what is it? The full length of what Marvel is supposed to be. Rorschach Syndrome Strikes Again. Yeah, it was very much they wanted us to hate these characters, but they accidentally made them interesting. And they wanted us to sympathize with the characters that were absolutely disgusting and horrible, aka the Flag Smashers, which we've already covered. Overall, okay, hold on. Production of Avengers, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe list. Where's the list? Feature films, Infinity Saga, list of Marvel Cinematic Universe films. Overall, okay, Infinity Saga, past Endgame, and Spider-Man was the last of this, last of Phase 3. For what it's worth, I did enjoy it. It wasn't like Tom Holland, like, I guess taking a detour from this Thunderbolts review to talk about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I found the character at least relatable. If not a bit envious of the females around me liking Tom Holland, but overlooking someone who I find looks a lot like Tom Holland, which is myself, if I am flattering myself. But overall, I like the character. I found him relatable, and something interesting that I note is in Far From Home and Homecoming, the Spider-Man or Peter Parker doesn't suffer as nearly as much as the Andrew Garfield and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, which are often considered the underdog and the definitive take on the character. Now, well, of course, something that I did admire about No Way Home was Spider-Man, or Peter Parker at least, absolutely suffers in this movie. And what does that have to do with Thunderbolts? Well, Thunderbolts, as the entire premise of the movie, could be described as people who suffer. It is about struggle. It is about, as a differently named James Bond movie, Thunderball says, the fight goes on and on and on, but the fight is worth it all, at least in the lyrics of Thunderball, unrelated to Thunderbolts. But overall, I think that's it's something that stuck with me, and this was the last Marvel movie that I had an emotional connection to. I saw Black Widow, at least at home, and as much as I tried to like the characters, I'm more into gadgetry and weapons and that sort of thing. I'm a gun nerd. I'm more into tactical things than I am superheroes. So you'd expect me to like Black Widow, and Black Widow was aggressively mid, and with parts of it plagiarized from Modern Warfare 2. No, it was Modern Warfare 3. It was 2, or the Rescue Price from the Gulag. The entire section where they break out Red Guardian, who is in Thunderbolts, in Black Widow, is copied wholesale from the Gulag scene in Modern Warfare 2. This is a fun fact, down to the guns the guards are using. But speaking of that, how that ties into Thunderbolts, well, two of the characters here, at least present, well, three of them really, Red Guardian, Yelena, and Taskmaster are, well, two of them are featured heavily in Thunderbolts. We'll get into that in a second. Again, I am kind of delaying things, but for the most part, okay, actually, I will give credence to Guardians 3. Guardians 3 was in fact it was fun. It was emotional, despite my dislike for James Gunn as a person, and I'm not entirely supportive of the changes he's made to the DCEU. I admittedly prefer Zack Snyder's takes on a lot of the DCEU, despite its clear flaws. Guardians 3 and his brief return to Marvel. This I did enjoy because it was an emotional story that I could connect with. That was that despite its rather irreverent humor was treated with serious respect. And the rest of these stories, well, I haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, I've only seen parts of it. And the rest of these, it could be easily said that everything else here was either mid or just shit. Just very evocative of the word slop, of mass market consumer slop. They were not fun, they did not connect with me, or I had little to no interest in them. Thunderbolts, where is that? Thunderbolts, definitely is the outlier of these, because I did in fact feel quite a bit. It's a very emotional movie. It is a very emotional movie from the start. And I think there's a hardliner focus on it. It presents and there is both elements of the traditional shoot 'em up action thriller that I was missing in this, and there are parts of the mental psychological drama aspect of Thunderbolts that I feel missed out. But for what we got, as I said on Twitter, I came into the theater expecting, with my hopes a little bit high. I was expecting the full bowl, and I got a tablespoon. And that is my biggest problem with this movie, is that there's not enough of it. Well, and that's rare for a Marvel movie. Most of the time, I just want to know what happens while it plays in the background, while I scroll my phone, or, I don't know, play Gmod, or while I discuss my parents' work, or while that happens in the background. This is different. This is an experience that I truly and legitimately felt was necessary to see in a theater. It is one of those few MCU movies that I would say is worth seeing in theater. Now let's start. Let's hold on. Let's see if I can loop my BGM. Yeah. So the Black Widow is a surprisingly, well, despite me having my many complaints about this movie, it is rather vital to what happens in Thunderbolts. So, to give a basic rundown, so I guess how do I start this? It starts off with this mission where the main focus of the group, at least, is going to be Elena. Despite there being a lot of other prominent characters. Did anyone even see or remember Shang-Chi? I don't want to remember Shang-Chi because I don't like Simu Liu, or whatever his name was. There's this whole thing, oh, it's supposed to be Black Panther for Asian people. I didn't like Black Panther as it was. I am of the Asian ethnicity, and, well, I'm not Chinese, but it was not enough, nothing about Shang-Chi was enough to connect with me. I don't like, we're all VTuber, most of us here at least are VTuber fans, and I find Dizzy's rants about Aquafina being her but evil quite interesting. But at the end of the day, just talk about the movie, talk about Thunderbolts. There's an interesting start to the movie. It is a very muted. The color choices of this movie are sometimes work in its favor and sometimes don't. This might be a Marvel movie, but this has the same, what kind of statement is that? Asian, Mexican, Filipino. I have a friend, ironically the friend who I saw this movie with, who is, I think, a Panamanian or Guatemalan Chinese, which is, as I like to call him, Filipino with extra steps. And he might be listening, he might not. This would be his, I think, first exposure to VTubers, but, well, I'm a PNG at the moment, but, So, something that you instantly realize about this movie is the color grading and the color and the aesthetics that are chosen. Despite this movie being an MCU Marvel slop movie, it tries. It adapts, actually, what I feel the color palettes from Zack Snyder's DCEU, from Batman vs Superman, Man of Steel, Justice League. It has that kind of very dark, gritty, and muted color grading. that is of course intentional throughout the most of the movie. And despite this being set at like the opening scene being set in a tropical country, which is Malaysia, so it starts off with Elena on this glowy op on she is being a glowy that could be justifiably run over at 80 miles an hour. This does not happen. This almost does. I feel like a few times, but she is being a government agent. She's being a fed. She's working for this group called OXE, which is supposed to be this unethical science division run by the CIA, which is of course, if you're familiar with real life, entirely in character with the CIA. So she's trying to hunt down these secret superhuman projects, these like that are attempting to create new super soldiers, but she's doing it on behalf of OXE because they want no loose ends. She is doing what Shepard did to Ghost and Roach at the end of at that part in Modern Warfare 2 where the one less loose end. She is cleaning up the loose ends metaphorically. I don't know why I'm using so many metaphors. It's interesting. I guess they kind of did a spin on that scene from Mission Impossible 3 where Ethan Hunt has to bungee jump or parachute from one building to another and then take out all the guards, make off with the MacGuffin and get out. Although there is no MacGuffin in this one, Yelena just detonates the lab after a short firefight and scurries off. Well, one of the first things that I guess both myself and my friend here noticed was, well, Florence Pugh, despite her looking a little bit like, despite her more masculine and tomboyish appearance in this movie, Florence Pugh is a beautiful actress. I quite like her. I applaud her performance here, and one thing besides me complimenting her looks, very beautiful woman. Besides me complimenting her looks, I do think she brings a lot of character to a lot of personality to a character that was initially featured as annoying, obnoxious, and unemotional or very bland. In Black Widow, Yelena was relatively bland. She was a snarky asshole in Black Widow. She was not too much of a likable character, but in here it is entirely understandable, and I like that is what is one of the few areas that where the script writers did do an excellent job is making this unemotional character seem very emotional and have that unemotionality come from a crisis of self. You can see here in like I wish they focused on her physicality in the fight scenes more, where like making it more plausible where she or at least have her use her guns more, at least in that opening scene. But there is a point where she is holding a guard hostage and attempting to crack a safe where she's just ranting to him, really. She's just ranting to him about her current life situation because she literally has no one else to talk to. And there's this nice scene involving a guinea pig, which I have unofficially dubbed Amy again, because I am an insufferable VTuber fan. She doesn't get what she's looking for, but she decides to blow the lab anyway, and during this emotional crisis that she feels during the mission, this sort of numbness, she places a call to her boss, DeFontaine, who is the main villain of the movie, that she wants to quit. She wants to quit being a glowy for the time being, or at least take one more job, and then quit being a glowy for the moment, or at least be transferred to a different section of OXE. I remember the ads kind of, yeah, this is meant to be a much darker MCU kind of movie. Something that and it stays true to form. It does stay true to form. It's not necessarily it is not edgy, it is just dark. It is troubled. My friend described it as emo. I would not consider it emo. I just consider it Menhera, which I feel us as a group of people are entirely familiar with. There's some behind the scenes drama going on. Bucky, which I guess for my who is, I don't know why they let him in Congress. He and Alex Mason from Black Ops 1 assassinated JFK. I don't know why they let him in Congress, but Bucky is intended to be some kind of congressman, I guess, riding on the high of him being involved, like despite the controversy of him being a former international assassin. I guess his association with Captain America was enough for him to be elected congressman of whatever district of New York he was. I won't comment on too much on that, but why he became this was teased for some reason. I don't like, and we don't know his political status by the end of the movie. But Bucky is intended to be a congressman at this point, who was investigating DeFontaine and potential unethical activities. Get to the point, they're at some kind of ball, they're at some kind of charity ball. Bucky attempts to worm some information out of DeFontaine's assistant, who becomes relevant later on in the movie. And at the same time, Yelena and a group of the other who are going to become the Thunderbolts get dispatched to what is not Area 51 in what I want to believe is Nevada, because Nevada is a beautiful place and probably one of my favorite states besides Florida and Maine and Louisiana. But those are like, I don't know why I'm giving I don't know. I've been to Nevada recently, and whenever I think of a desert, I think of that kind of I think of that. I think of what I saw in the desert and what you saw in VTuber Fizzed's Fallout New Vegas in real life, that previous stream. Whatever. I'm tangenting. I've been hanging out with a lot of real people recently, and I've noticed that I begin to tangent a lot with them as well. But overall, okay, get to the real stuff. They're all the who are going to become the Thunderbolts, who are currently they all work for the same company, but they're all freelancers. They are intended to be solo. Walker, Ghost, which is from Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Dreykov, who is supposed to be Taskmaster from Black Widow. This is where I start loving the movie and where I start hating it. First off, it is, I guess, entirely unrealistic that the facility that the well, of course, we learn later on that DeFontaine has attempted to lure her mercenaries into this vault, into this sort of into this protective bunker underneath a mountain, in order to get rid of the evidence, have them all kill each other, and dispose of the survivors one by one. But it would be entirely unrealistic to assume she doesn't have some kind of automated security. At least, why are they all arriving there one by one? Why are they all active in trying to... But it should be pretty clear. It should be pretty clear after the opening gunfight of what is supposed to happen here in the bunker in what I'm gonna say is Nevada. It's pretty clear that this was a setup, and why these highly trained ex-military or military affiliated assassins don't realize that they are being set up, at least after the first 2 minutes of shooting, and immediately identifying each other, why they didn't think of realizing very quickly that they are in fact... This was in fact a betrayal. This was a setup. They were relying on each other to kill each other. Fontaine was relying on them to kill each other. Why they didn't notice that sooner, despite it being pretty damn obvious, is, I guess, a shame. And very quickly, the guy that I came here for, John Walker, is very immediately mischaracterized. One of my gripes about him, because of him being a far complex character than the MCU writers wanted him to be, they immediately make him an asshole, which is, it could have gone one or two ways. It just, at a few points in the movie, they were trying to stereotype my boy Walker as this sort of very stereotypical ex-military vet bro. But they didn't even understand the stereotype that they were trying to make, if that's the case. They even vet bros and wannabe gray men don't act like this. They just don't. I don't know, but at least give him at least elaborate, because they did briefly elaborate on why he acts like this. But that's later on. Something I will give, and they meet this, okay, Fontaine Rapture. Your Mexican land yachts suck, I feel like, shut up, shut up. Anyways, so what happens here is, So there's this fight that occurs in the bunker, and that goes on. One of the things that I will admire is that I'm gonna say out loud. This feels less like, if you ignore that the fact that these are all Marvel, supposed to be Marvel Comics superheroes. The opening second, like, it very much feels like an SCP movie, and that is one of the compliments that I will start giving this film. It does not feel like a simple Marvel slop movie with colorful CGI with colorful CGI and edgy and like bright graphics and garish graphics. It feels like an SCP movie. If you've okay, let me search up. Okay, Thunderbolts. Why did I spell Thunderbolts? Thunderbolts trailer. Something I will search up is SCP Dollhouse. SCP Dollhouse, Evan from Evan Royalty. SCP Dollhouse. If you've seen, like, I have yet to watch these in full. If you have seen SCP Dollhouse or SCP Overlord, which is also by Evan Royalty, the opening elements of Thunderbolts absolutely feels like an SCP movie adaptation. It is absolutely, or what is that? SCP Secret Lab? Let me see if I can pull that up. Is it SCP Secret Lab? No, it's not. That feels more like Half-Life. It's ironic because all of my comparisons, it's like Phase Connect is like Black Mesa. No, I mean, it's OXC, and how it's treated is a kind of a blend of SCP and Black Mesa, at least in how it's presented. I know they're based off something else in the comics called AIM, but that was already presented as part of the film, as part of the MCU. But yeah. Let me find, surely I won't get copyright struck for a trailer. But there is a scene where they're assaulting, where they're getting in contact with each other. Everything in the bunker feels like SCP, feels like a SCP Dollhouse, SCP Dollhouse trailer, SCP Overlord.
They're coming straight in.
No, shut up.
I've got
this absolutely gets the vibe of some of the things that we see later on. No, you're enjoying the character wrong. We're gonna make them worse now. Yeah, unfortunately, this is in fact what they did with Walker, the guy that I of course came to see. I guess I'll elaborate on him a little bit more. I'll elaborate on him a little bit more at the moment. He's presented as a sort of obnoxious asshole that doesn't really track. It doesn't even track with what they wrote him in for Falcon and Winter Soldier. In Falcon and Winter Soldier, like, they tried to make him the broken nice guy, or like at least they were going for that angle, this nice guy with a dark side. But in here they realized that this was too cool, this was too interesting and likable of a character, so they just made him an asshole in this one, and they deliberately call him an asshole. They literally call him an asshole a couple times in this movie. Again, this is not a perfect movie. I still recommend seeing it, but it is not a perfect movie. But thankfully, at least, one of the few things that I can admire about what they did is elements of him, like, he should have been more willing to help, I guess. He has reason to be distrustful of the people around him, because he's working as a literal glowy now, as a government agent where anyone can betray him at any point. So it's kind of understandable he would be skeptical, but they just turned him into this brash asshole that didn't even fit with the character beforehand. He's supposed to be this sort of, like, this man who's seen the horrors of modern warfare and just is all business, and at least approach him being a dickhead to everyone from the angle of he is up to here, he is overflowing with everyone's bullshit and cannot have the time or patience to tolerate it anymore, lest it get him killed, or lest it or less to distract him long enough to compromise him in that way. At the very least, have him be on edge as a result of that. It did get tired. It did get a bit tired of Yelena and Ghost taking the piss out of him a little bit too many times, and my other big problem with the opening scene of Thunderbolts is, okay, this is gonna be a pretty clear spoiler. I guess people know it already. Taskmaster dies. Where is that? Where's Taskmaster? Members. Where's where is that? Hold on, give me a second. Yes, they. Oh yeah, the other big problem besides them bullying my favorite character is they just kill Taskmaster. Ghost outmaneuvers her and just shoots her in the head after a brief fight scene where it seems like Taskmaster is winning. Ghost uncloaks in front of her and blows her head off. That is, and she dies very, very unceremoniously, especially for a character they thought was supposed to be the emotional focal point of Black Widow. Taskmaster was supposed to be like the sort of dragon, the villain of Black Widow, and supposed to be an emotional connection villain too. Why they just blow her head off in the what is essentially the opening scene of Thunderbolts confounds me. The director has his reasons why. Not gonna lie, I did not really care about anything that came before it because I lost track of the MCU a while ago. That's kind of like for a while, ever since Thunderbolts. I mean, ever since Spider-Man ended, technically ended its series with No Way Home. I basically lost contact with everything in the MCU. I was poked back in by Guardians of the Galaxy 3 because I got recommended it by people who were generally very critical and very harsh on the MCU. But yeah. Anyways, it feels like dealing with as opposed to Spider-Man and Guardians, which feels like, or even Deadpool, which feels like deliberately obscuring or like trying to draw attention away from the inherent problems of the MCU. This one confronts them head on. What the immediate previous film failed to do, which was Captain America: Brave New World, or I guess more like Falcon: Brave New World. This movie takes them head on and takes them seriously. Something that I'm willing to understand. It still has elements of those MCU problems. Like I said, they just killed Taskmaster, and they keep taking the piss out of Walker for no real understandable reason other than we dislike the people that are fans of him. But for what it's worth, the film does attempt to take on address the problems the MCU was having. And one of the things that stood out from the non-action, more drama scenes involving politics and DeFontaine being the director of the CIA is her addressing the Avengers don't exist anymore. There are no Avengers. No one is coming to save you, and that is why she's trying to make super soldiers again, and all that. And it sort of addresses the events of Brave New World in ways that I generally didn't care for, but it just happens in the background, so it's tolerable by me. So what happens next is, so they meet. So they're in the bunker. They are in the bunker that they were sent to shoot each other in. I'm still on that part. Like Taskmaster's death, besides them bullying John Walker, Taskmaster's death is straight up one of the major gripes I do have about this movie, because They treat her like a loot drop because she uses one of the most she's like one of the most skilled in weapons use of the group, and then Ghost just teleports in front of her and shoots her in the head. Um, they it's not very respectful to the character for reasons I don't know why. Again, because she was presented as this sort of new troubled female character that's supposed to be strong and past her problems, but then they just shot her in the head. I don't know why. And then they had Ghost and Walker immediately loot her corpse. That is not a joke. They immediately treat Taskmaster as a fucking loot drop. Um Walker grabs some more ammo from her while Ghost helps herself to her gear and weapons. And it they say like Yelena immediately calls them out, and then calls them both of them out for not having respect for the dead. Well, in fairness, they were all trying to kill each other at that moment, but it wasn't necessary. Look, I get the director has issues with incorporating her kind of character into his kind of movie, but I mean, it entirely works. She could have it would like I feel like it would have been fine for her to remain as part of the Thunderbolts. I don't see the problem. I don't see the problem with her with Taskmaster. There were like, I guess this is their way of addressing the controversy, because Taskmaster in the comics is originally a male, is originally this sort of male assassin character. Instead, Taskmaster is sort of made as the ultimate project of the Black Widows, and it's a problem that I have. It's one of the, like I said, it's a very troubled movie. But with all the complaining that I have, I'm gonna glaze the movie again. I'm gonna gush about it. So they find this guy. They find where is he? They find who is gonna become Sentry down in the bunker, who is being held in this sort of life pod, this sort of cryogenic sleep pod that was meant for disposal because they were trying to kill him. And it becomes immediately clear that he is sort of the odd one out of the group. He doesn't have any visible powers at the moment. There's they don't know how he got down there. Walker is supposed to realize, instead of, like, I don't know why they made him stupid, but Walker is supposed to realize that this was the guy that was accidentally triggered by, like opened out of the cryogenic vault by their fighting. So he's in there. He's in there. He comes out. They stop fighting in order to examine him, like question him why he's there. They just later assume he's a civilian who was caught in the crossfire, or some kind of civilian, some kind of they should have. One of the things, another complaint, okay, going into the complaints, another complaint that I have: why aren't these highly trained combat operatives who were sent in there and then realized that they were set up, why aren't they taking the data with them? Aren't they there to, like, like, once they realize that they are officially rogue because they were supposed to be dead, their their first order of business should have been, well, of course, getting their presumed civilian out of there, finding the data on what they were supposed to destroy, and then getting out of there. Getting out of there as soon as possible. Of course, getting out of there, but finding an opportunity, and they do manage to get the data on Sentry immediately after, although not before a few things happen. So he's down here, and I'm gonna say, okay, what? Oh, Clinton Cooper. Okay. Lewis Pullman. There is a sort of I've only known him in one other movie. I guess good on his part, because it is one of the best movies I've ever seen, that being Top Gun Maverick. And he plays it's not related to Marvel, but it's worth talking about. He plays my literally me in the in Top Gun Maverick. Besides Rooster and in Maverick himself, of course. That being the sort of aloof, quiet kid who is the weapon systems officer of the FA-18E. No, my bad, FA-18F, piloted by this hot tomboy pilot that, for better or for worse, I imagine them together because I want my literally me to be happy. It sounds cringe as fuck when I say it out loud, but you know what? Well, I chose the Cupid character for a reason. I'm sort of a serial shipper. But that's besides the point. His performance here in this movie was nothing short of excellent. I very much like Lewis Pullman as an actor. He's the son of Bill Pullman, who I've seen in Independence Day. Another this 90s movie that I'm sure the 90s appreciators of film and cinema in the crowd are familiar with, which is a very good movie. In this one, he very much is this sort of he easily presents a troubled man, a troubled young man who he's a sensitive young man like most of us. He is very much literally us in that regard, at least. And um one of the things that I dislike about their other characters' treatment of him is, of course, the mischaracterization of Walker being entirely on edge and just like immediately hating him, or I guess a Star who's Ghost. From what I remember, not taking entirely a trusting to him either. Yelena is the only one who's able to connect with him and sort of negotiate with him as if he's like. Yelena's the only one who sort of sees him as we should take him with us, and he is a potential civilian caught in the crossfire of all this. He is essentially a hostage that needs to be rescued. So they take him up, they take them with him. They escape. They escape the vault in this, and this. It's meant to be a funny scene, but it is a genuinely nice scene, an emotionally nice scene where they have to crawl up an elevator shaft where all of them have to support each other all the way up the elevator shaft. All the way up the elevator shaft because the elevator isn't working. And for what it's worth, I did like that scene. I did like that scene. Um and another point where, ironically, something ironic that I really like about this discussion of, I'm bringing up Walker again, in which he decides to act on his own a couple times. Instead of, he's being impatient, and instead of waiting for the group to get all the way up to the top, he tries to make the leap himself and try and catch he's gonna try and break through the door at the end and then catch everyone on the when he comes down. This doesn't work, but for what it's worth, it did work in the end because all of them remained alive at the remained alive at the end, and they were able to get out. And the other point is where elements of the SCP comparisons where is that? Let me pause the BGM. Um
Let's talk fact.
Could do something about it now.
This is of OXC operators entering the building they're in, guns like searching out, going hostile. Okay, so what am I saying? Okay, so the characters get out of the vault, they get out of the bunker. Fontaine immediately orders where's that? The Fontaine immediately orders this group, this mercenary company, to come in and eliminate the loose ends, eliminate the team that she sent in, as well as capture Sentry alive, or Bob alive. Something funny that I realized in both of the movies, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, maybe I just have short-term memory. Both the characters played by Lewis Pullman are named Bob in both the appearances that I've seen him in. Both Bob in both Bob in Top Gun Maverick and Bob in this one. But they exit the vault. They exit the bunker, and then Fontaine sends in these guys, these glowy operators, these sort of death squad, to come in and eliminate them. And it's very much like this. They're treated. These guys, the OXC mercenaries, are treated much in the way an SCP MTF like Nine-Tailed Fox, the mobile task force would have gone. Where is that? Yeah, the mobile task forces. I'm gonna highlight them. these very much fit the vibe of OXE, the sort of SCP gone wrong, and it's very much if you think about the Thunderbolt heroes as this sort of D class personnel that have escaped with an SCP in tow, that is very much a very good analogy for this opening of the movie. For this opening of the movie, where they're getting out of they have to get out of the bunker like this,
Or live with it forever.
and the and that element right there where the this is supposed to be the bunker that they're getting out of. This is set in the bunker. That's different. This is also set in that bunker.
It's like your mind is somewhere else.
That's a nice scene that they had. I'm rambling a bit. What am I doing? I'm trying to recap the movie just as much as review it. But yeah, it's very much in this sort of SCP Overlord, SCP Dollhouse sort of genre, in that style. And another thing that they tried to shit on with Walker, but ironically that I appreciate, is they made him end up being the guy in the right for once. Most of everything handled so far of them actually confronting the enemy operators in the OXE operators, these guys, was done because Ghost basically disappears and then tries to find an escape route that they could take out. She tries to find them an escape vehicle. Walker takes on all of these guys, steals the uniform, disguises himself as them, because the plan was Yelena was supposed to turn on the power, blind them, and he takes them out. He didn't wait for her because she was taking too long, and acts on his own. They immediately assumed that he has tried to escape himself, but instead came back for them. There's that sort of fuck you moment where Yelena starts shooting at him, but then realizes that it's just him, and he is in fact a friendly, and he's coming back for them. And it is one of the it's a nice moment that I give to him, that I very much enjoyed seeing him in action, where he's smart enough to he's taking out all these guys. He's smart enough to realize this is the kind of situation he's in, and realize they cannot shoot their way out, as much as which is ironically very much at odds with the sort of very rude, very brash assertiveness of him, attempt to depict him as. This is more in line with an experienced agent who knows what he's doing, and Walker genuinely knows what he's doing in that scene. He is able to take out the first wave of operatives, fool the second wave into thinking that they're friendlies, walk himself, Yelena, and Bob, or Sentry, out of the vault, get him to an escape vehicle, and then trundle off. And then trundle off. He's able to make his way to an MRAP that they're using in order to escape. And for the most part, it's pretty smooth for the most part. And then until Sentry here decides to become a little bit self-suicidal, and draw their fire. He takes an M4. There's a nice moment where Yelena is fighting the OXE operators, and she hands him an M4, and I guess they're kind of trying to establish them as some sort of relationship, if at least platonic, if not semi-understanding, or semi-romantic, if not just straight platonic, where she hands him a gun. He asked for a gun. She hands him one. She hands him an M4, and he accidentally flags her, which of course is cringe, but I guess it's natural for a character that isn't experienced with firearms but wants to learn to accidentally flag their comrade. And she, of course, scolds him for that, but she ties them together, basically treating him as a hostage that she needs to extract, which I find is nice. She's supposed to be the heart of the movie, and I like that. I really did like that part of her and him, that their interactions form the sort of heart and soul of the movie, which I have my gripes about, but for what it's worth, I did enjoy. So both of them are trying to get out, and then at the end of it all, in order to draw their fire after they are discovered, after they alert the guards on their way out, he grabs another M4, mag dumps into the air in order to draw their fire, and then he gets killed. He gets quote unquote killed. There's a very good scene in which all the OXE operatives acting against DeFontaine's orders they all get up in a line and open fire on him. There's visibly no blood because there's only bullet holes in his shirt, and then he as my friend says, he bro thinks he's Homelander or whatever, but it's more of this is going to sound like a very immature comparison. Sentry turns on God mode in Gmod. It feels like a Gmod ARG where he is the ominous black figure in the sky, in which he gets shot up and he gets lit up with gunfire. For all the OXE operators have not realized, or I guess not had the presence of mind to open fire with everything, that being all artillery on site, machine guns, grenade launchers. They're just using their M4s. They drop him, and then he turns into Superman, flies into the air, and then impacts the ground at serious speed and collapses the entire bunker network underneath. And that leads into another aspect of the movie that I did not like, which was, despite the very interesting, I love how creepy and startling the scene was. Instead of seeing this costumed man fly up like Superman, because Sentry is meant to be the Marvel equivalent to Superman. Instead of flying up into the air and then dropping, he flies up in the air and drops. He is completely in his normal clothes. He looks nothing. He does not look heroic at all. He feels like this frenzied mad god that is in human form. That is, or this, I guess, this in which he feels. How do I describe it? It is very unnatural and startling in the way that that Sentry first demonstrates his powers, because he's not in a suit. It doesn't look like he's wearing dark clothes or muted beige clothes that feel like he should not be flying. He should not have these powers. He really is. In fact, he really does feel like an escaped Keter class SCP, in which he kills everyone on sight either unintentionally, by accident, or on purpose in order to let the rest of the group get away. He is getting away. So the rest of the group get away in the MRAP that they were able to steal, but it's busted. So because of the damage that Sentry caused to the surrounding area, basically killed everyone on sight except for DeFontaine and the other elements of her support team that was standing by. So Ghost, where's that? Taskmaster. Ghost. Ghost. This is Ghost. Yelena, and where's that? Ghost, Yelena, and Walker are all together. They're the ones making their way out. They're the ones making their way out of the situation on foot. And there is the other part of that I really like about Walker's character is, and I guess part of me that made me really want to see Wyatt Russell. That made me want to see Wyatt Russell as some kind of Solid Snake or Naked Snake type character, is when I guess one of the parts where they did decide to humanize him, I guess in their own way, I guess throw us Walker fans in the audience a bone, was when these two, Yelena and Ghost are I guess they've been down there for several hours and they haven't eaten or drank. So Walker summons a plan to pick up a prickly pear cactus, take out a survival knife and carve them a piece. So basically get them some food so they can keep going, keep walking. Which is nice, and I really did enjoy that. I like that element of the character, and it's, for the most part, when the character stays quiet, I think it elaborates as him part of it being a part of his survival training. And I really did enjoy that. It only reinforced me wanting to see someone like Walker or some kind of. I want to see Wyatt Russell play Snake or some iteration of Snake in Metal Gear. It was very. I enjoyed it. I very much did enjoy that scene. It's little, but it's worth it. And then there's some setup in which Red Guardian, where's that? Red Guardian, who is supposed to be the Soviet okay. If I'm gonna sum up the characters that we have so far, we have this guy is Heavy from Team Fortress 2. He's supposed to be the Soviet version of Captain America, or like the Russian version of Captain America, Captain Russia, essentially. This is just Heavy from TF2. He talks, walks, and acts like Heavy from TF2 if Heavy was a dumbass. Yeah, Alexei Shostakov. This is Heavy from Team Fortress 2. This is why I had this. It's because Yelena feels like Miss Pauling, and Red Guardian kind of feels like Heavy. I'm not going to lie. I guess who would be Walker in this situation? It would definitely be Soldier. Why am I starting over my words? Yes, this is why the Thunder. This is why a picture of Team Fortress is up in the Thunderbolts review. It's because I identified them as being very much akin to being the sort of the Team Fortress 2 misfit hero archetype of the sort of it's slightly immoral misfit hero archetype of the MCU. The Thunderbolts are essentially their Team Fortress. And something that I've neglected to mention that I really did appreciate is essentially when Yelena and Sentry shook hands. When Yelena and Sentry, where's that? When Yelena and Sentry shook hands, there was this particular scene in which Yelena gets transported back to her training as a Black Widow, basically being trained as a child soldier, and where she is desensitized to killing by being forced to lure out one of her friends in order to have her assassinated for, like, I guess some kind of her not making the cut. For her not making the cut, and like she still carries her troubles. And this and the other scene in which Walker is in a depressive state after being booted from the role of from the mantle, or he is demoted from being Captain America. He's reviewing like the media slander and libel against him, and he's reviewing the media slander and libel against him, and he's just not having a good time with his wife, who was like another like how that plays out could be used for good or bad. On one end, it's showing him as a potentially deadbeat dad when it feels like this isn't how he is. This isn't how he should be, because at least that's not how I interpreted the character. I feel like he was just in a mental state where he could not properly take care of a child or interact with people properly, and he kind of drowned himself in being this sort of assassin for Fontaine, or this sort of hitman for Fontaine, in order to drown himself and drown out those emotions. And I hate that we only got a glimpse of that, because Walker, like all of these, so the focusing point of all of these characters, not just that they're like some kind of villain or assassin, or they've killed a lot of people before, not merely that, is that all of them, all of these characters have experienced some sort of serious trauma, except maybe Shostakov, except for maybe like Taskmaster certainly did, because Taskmaster was under mind control for the majority of her life. Yeah, that's a spoiler for later. The only character besides that is probably Red Guardian, but it could be interpreted because he was literally tossed in a gulag. The betrayal. Okay, but well, getting out. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna speed through things a little bit quickly. So okay, they escape due to a setup from earlier. Due to a setup from earlier, Red Guardian initially saves them using an armored limo, which isn't very armored because it isn't. Well, to be fair, he's driving this ancient Crown Vic that probably doesn't protect much against 50 BMG, which OXC are shooting them at. There's this nice scene where they're being chased by a convoy of OXC Humvees with sonic cannons and Browning 50 cals that are just peppering this vehicle, and you can really see the team synergy that despite like having every incentive for them to scatter and the sort of, oh, this character's an asshole, this character's a misfit, this character's only in it for himself. Walker is again pulling his weight in. I'm pretty sure he got equipped with a new vibranium shield because it's withstanding that 50 cal, that 50 BMG pretty damn well. He is withstanding that 50 BMG pretty damn well, and he is basically their lifeline initially. Both of them attempt to take out the Humvees following them before. There's this really nice scene that's pointed out where Guardian's limo, because Guardian is supposed to have like a sort of limo. Shostakov has a limo business on the side, why, like, because he retired from hero duties but wants to get back in. He has a limo and private security business on the side. You're expected to believe his limo is armored. He claims it is. It's not. It's clearly not, or at least not up to 50 BMG ball ammo, which is understandable. It is an old Crown Vic. There's not really too much space to put level 4 body armor on that. But there's this point where he's flipping switches in his dashboard, kind of like James Bond, where he has his control panel of weapons and defensive implements on his car. It doesn't do anything, but as a last resort, he just grabs a vodka from his minibar, lights it on fire, and uses it as a Molotov cocktail against the one of the Humvees. This unfortunately doesn't do anything, but he is at least trying to pull his weight besides drive. And then Bucky shows up on a motorcycle, very big. Again, probably the other character that he came for was Bucky. He has an entire side story where he's a congressman. There's a scene of him trying to impeach DeFontaine for alleged wrongdoings that are going on and trying to audit her. There's this really stupid scene where he's trying to read the read this giant omnibus bill that is being bullshitted on, but I guess what kind of took away from the reverency and the seriousness of the scene is that he was eating wings or something during that, and which I guess gives an excuse for him for all the women to cheer for him to like get I don't know, whatever. He's eating wings, and he's getting food sauce on his on the documents he's supposed to read. It's not my favorite scene at all. I feel like they could have handled it with a lot more reverency. But then, thankfully, they immediately redeem him and like remember that he's supposed to be this cool guy. He's supposed to be this cool badass. So he manages to get out to the Nevada test site, where the Nevada bunker, where all the Thunderbolts were being. They're not the Thunderbolts yet. Where all of these guys are being held, or being chased. I'm rambling a bit. Okay, focus, Felix, focus. Okay, you're just describing what happens in the movie. You need to focus on what you have. Focus. Okay. So he drives out to the desert to rescue them as well. I guess take out the OXC members and then hold them all, basically arrest them all, citizen's arrest for questioning in an attempt to get them to testify against DeFontaine. And then it's realized that Sentry, the Sentry, I guess the guy that they need as definitive proof of DeFontaine's wrongdoing and active like participation in unethical and immoral scientific and military experiments. He's trying to get them to testify against her. They realize that they have a rogue hyper, like this rogue like guy with superpowers on the loose under Fontaine's control that they have to immediately respond to, because she is moving Sentry or Bob to Avengers Tower, to the former Avengers Tower or Stark Tower, and which is where they have to have their confrontation. So they have that. There's this whole emotional bit where they decide to call themselves the Thunderbolts, or they just start calling themselves the Thunderbolts because of something that Yelena had in her past life. I think in the comics it was supposed to be named after Thunderbolt Ross, who is Red Hulk in the Captain America Brave New World. But there's that. I am kind of rambling. Okay, what happens in the movie? I'm trying to provide context. What happens there? Um there's a short scene where let me find it. Let me find it. I'm gonna steal a bit from I'm gonna steal it from this section. Was Yeah, it's also pretty disrespectful of John Walker. John Walker makes perfectly reasonable point, and most of the time in the movie he does have a point, and he does have a point. Okay, sure, discount Captain America. Sure, what the hell does that have to do with that? I said keep it moving, tiny dick. Women are talking, which is, it gets annoying, but the writers are still flawed just as much as this movie, so we have to contend with that. I recall one dick joke that was from Winter to Bobby Walker. It happens a couple times, in which I'm gonna spurg out about the weapons in this movie because why this keeps happening. IMFDB Thunderbolts. Because one of the problems that I have with some parts of this movie is they're using airsoft guns and they treat them as real guns when I guess we're not expected, for the audience isn't quite expected to know that these are fake, that these are airsoft guns. But knowing that they are, because in the trailer when I saw these I thought they were supposed to be like some kind of tranquilizer guns. No, these are real guns that they use throughout the movie. It is a shame, because I would have given these heroes, these, like, at least the characters, a lot more interesting kinds of loadouts. A lot more interesting kinds of loadouts. Like, for example, Walker would have either gotten an SPI Infinity. He would have gotten one of these in 10mm, at least. I would have wanted him to have one of these. Yelena would have had hers in 40 cal, I guess, to fit with the 10mm or like more advanced theme instead of the 43. I want a 43 in real life. I want a 43 in real life, specifically a Glock 43X. But for what it's worth, it does fit her character. I do wish they were more customized. And the same thing, something like for WB High Kappa, I would have given her I would have given Ghost an IWI Masada, at least in my opinion. And the characters, and like all the characters that already use guns, would have gotten rifles as well. Either a second pistol to work with as well, or a rifle for long range engagements that would have made sense instead of just stealing their enemies' M4s. Which that happens rather often with airsoft. Yeah, that's unfortunate. It does happen quite often. Anyways, going on with parts of the movie. So, and then we get to a good part that focuses entirely on, where is that? Yeah, Sentry. Okay, so he wakes up in this bedroom, this dormitory being constructed for him in the former Stark Tower, which is now the Watchtower. So he is captured by DeFontaine, and there is this scene where you can see how fake DeFontaine is supposed to be. You can see how fake this character is supposed to be, but again, like, on one hand, she's fucking Elaine from Seinfeld, which is funny, and on the other hand, she's supposed to be this rather very beautiful woman. I'm not going to lie, this very beautiful woman that is confronting Sentry and talking to him in a very motherly fashion, and I realize she is very much a Poe's Law has compared her to Stillwell from The Boys, now, and him and Sentry to Homelander. I do not care for The Boys. I've done at least one entire stream where I complained that The Boys is a piece of shit, so I will not be referencing it too much. Overall, his and her relationship is an interesting one. she at least tries to convince him to dress up or be a superhero that he was, or with the powers that he was given. She tries dressing him up as the Sentry, which is she tries where is that? Oh yeah, this is Sentry and the group escaping from the bunker. Where's the where's that? But yeah, overall he's sort of played at this as this very troubled, sensitive person who isn't entirely familiar with what he wants or like why he's doing the things that he does, and which leaves him open to a lot of semi hypnotic or at least almost trance like suggestions from the Fontaine in order to the power of suggestion getting him to do the things that do the things that she wants. There's another point where he touches her hand, where she touches his hand, and she gets a flashback of her past, where her dad is getting killed by several soldats from the mafia because she was formerly Italian, I guess Sicilian, and she was part of the mafia, or her family was, as when she was a child. So I guess it sort of plays into she isn't perfect as well. This sort of Freudian excuse for why she is the way she is, why she is why she is as corrupt, the reason she is corrupt, and because the way her morality behaves, it gives a sort of backstory to the morality Fontaine fake. Where have I heard this before? In Children of Men, the Mates, the police use our airsoft up close with G36 sights. Yeah, that's probably pretty common. But yeah, overall, I genuinely like this character. She's appeared several times in other Marvel movies, usually in like less prominent ones like Black Panther and Falcon and Winter Soldier. But I like what they did with her here, because like they make her very beautiful. They make her very at least with her backstory sympathetic, while having her be still very unapologetically evil. She very much is the central villain, but she doesn't quite get her comeuppance at the end. But you know, that's just how it is. She's like Lumi, she keeps getting away with it, and she in fact does keep getting away with it. So she tried to activate the Sentry. She dresses him up in a suit that's kind of like I guess it's where is that? I've been talking for an hour and we're only halfway through the movie. Overall, okay. So we're getting to that. We're getting to that. So, and I don't know. I just maybe I was a little bit horny. Y'all know I very much go for the hag. She is very beautiful hag energy. This is what one of my online friends would call a hell beast, a very beautiful woman who hides her villainy behind this sort of veneer of assertiveness and beauty. Of a hot girl boss that is unapologetically evil, at least in a lot of many ways. She does apologize at the end, but that's besides the point. That she does definitely fit into that archetype. And she lures the Thunderbolts, who are by then are in fact calling each other Thunderbolts, to the to Stark Tower, and makes them fight Sentry. Yelena is of course the only one who tries to appeal to his humanity, while of course he's in this sort of delirium. He's basically defending himself, but Sentry, where is that? Sentry refuses to kill them because he is already familiar with them. He doesn't want to show any real animosity to them other than defending himself, and he only tries to kill them when he's defending himself. He doesn't even go for something that he is purely capable of doing. It establishes his powers pretty coherently. He has elements of telepathy. He has telepathy, he has telekinesis, he can fly, he is invulnerable to the point of being essentially unkillable by anything that isn't a god. So, and she deliberately describes him as more powerful than the entirety of the original Avengers team, which I'm not going to, which sums it up pretty well. But the main part of him, his main weakness, of course, being his mental instability. So the intrusive thoughts kick in, and after DeFontaine reminds him that she is under his purview, she is the monster that she created. He is under his orders. He rebels. He considers killing her. He considers killing her until her kill switch activates, and then Void takes over, which is this sort of alter ego that is a dark side of him. Where is that? For other uses, see Void. Anyways, so but yeah, for the most part, yeah, this is mostly undone or unscripted. Fontaine fake. Where have I heard this before? Bonk. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Big Yike. Unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to, but he plays Lewis Pullman plays an excellent Void. Very much a sort of and a lot of people have compared him to Homelander. Where is that? It's just Homelander with different issues. Sentry is Homelander if he wanted to be fixed. Sentry is Homelander. He had perfect Homelander energy as Sentry. He did not feel like Homelander at all. I must say, Lewis Pullman feels more like Clark Kent. This is gonna sound really funny, especially to people who don't know VTubers. Sentry feels like Clark Kent if he joined FaZe Connect instead of the Justice League. I don't know what to say. That's what Sentry feels like. He feels like he of course they play up the part that he is a very troubled man. He is the sensitive young man archetype. But something I find very amusing is that both as Sentry and as Void, his powers don't even compare. They compare less to superheroes or even anime characters and more of he feels like a Gmod ARG monster. That's what Void and Sentry both feel like. He is playing this sort of vengeful Gmod player who is in Sandbox, who can instantly no-clip through anything. Well, technically the no-clip function is given to Ghost, but Sentry feels like he can do that anyway. He can destroy anything he wants. He can virtually unstoppable from his own intrusive thoughts as long as he is not stopped. And BioShock, my bad, BioShock, Fontaine and BioShock. I haven't played BioShock. I probably should at some point. But yeah, Sentry is Clark Kent, but he has very, very clear Menhera. That's what Bob Reynolds is. That's what Sentry is. And I say specifically Clark Kent because he very much is much more of a Clark Kent than a Superman in this movie. He is the meek, he is the mild, he is the cowering and not necessarily because he's a coward, but more like because he really can't do anything about his own situation. And it's that feeling of helplessness that he has, the sort of insistence on helping even when he himself is helpless, that I like about the character, that I really do admire about the character. The Sentry suit, so you can see him as Sentry. This is his belt. This is sort of like emblem. Suit developed by OXE for Sentry. And so after Fontaine, or at least Fontaine's assistant Maddie, attempts to use a kill switch on him that kills his human form, at least temporarily, but that's later brought back. He becomes the Void and swallows all of and envelops all of Manhattan in darkness. Specifically Manhattan. It's like shown as not enveloping past Manhattan. We're given a shot of an establishing shot of New York City, and one of the funnier parts is it's like I feel like the black borders of Sentry or of Void's rage only envelop Manhattan. But this is going into and a lot of the scenes with Sentry or Void are something that I would like to pick out. A lot of the like, despite it having a lot of good lighting and like certainly some of the best cinematography I've seen in a Marvel movie for a while, is that a lot of the scenes with Sentry and a lot of the scenes with Yelena don't have good lighting. They just don't. I understand the need to make a more gritty atmosphere by leaving a lot of dark spots, by giving that sort of Snyder-esque DCEU sort of very dark and shadowy appearance for a lot of the scenes and a lot of Yelena's scenes. The lighting at some points of this movie does not work. It just doesn't. It does not. It falters. Sometimes I'm not able to see the characters correctly. Sometimes there's too much glare. Maybe it's just the theater that I watched it in because I got the lowest settings for the theater. But overall, that was like visually wise. That is my main gripe with the movie. It is visually. Visually, for the most part, it is great, but there are several scenes and several vital scenes at that. Especially the first scene where Sentry, or at least Bob, in his uncontrolled form, kills half of the OXE and collapses the bunker, in which you can't see anything properly because the lighting is so dark. I get it. It takes place during the middle of the night, where there isn't supposed to be that much of a that much in terms of natural light, but it's still a movie. We could at least hopefully see what is going on. And then so Void happens after the Thunderbolts confront him, and for the most part, after being thrown out of Stark Tower by Sentry before it transforms into Void. The Thunderbolts, essentially, they all of them, the Thunderbolts as they are here, they have to leave. They just up and leave Stark Tower and wander around the streets for a while, trying to figure out what to do and develop a game plan. And then Yelena here has a full-on Minhero moment and decides to briefly quit the team. Leader Bucky Barnes, Avis. Oh, where is that? I don't know why it doesn't show Yelena there. The new Avengers, but you have the Thunderbolts here. So they tried to so in essence they try to stop. They just wander around. There's this really funny point in which Bucky drives a truck under the bottom floor of Stark Tower, and then they all jump out and start beating and shooting everyone, and everyone walking by Manhattan seems to not give a shit at all about what is happening. I guess either the joke that there's so many Avengers or like superhero related things going on that they've decided to not care about it anymore. None of them are even pulling out their phones or anything. They're just ignoring the active gunfight that is occurring at the base of what is literally Stark Tower. This really, that like one of the few times that the Marvel does get its comedy right is this sort of showing the horrific indifference of New Yorkers at what is happening to their city, and where things have to happen, where there is a gunfight occurring in Stark Tower and none of them give a shit. All these people in superhero costumes, or at least tactical gear, step out of the Stark Tower and start arguing about superhero shit. Everyone walks by without a care in the world. They are oblivious to like a word, to every second of it. So Yelena here, the Black Widow's sister, for those unfamiliar, I should have mentioned that earlier. This is Natasha Romanoff's sister, adoptive sister. She has a Minhero moment, she has a breakdown, she walks off, and Red Guardian, who was her adoptive father, attempts to console her into rejoining the team again. Console her into rejoining the team again, and so that happens. That they have an argument in the street, and he gives her a pep talk about something that he like, because they were previously Russian agents posted to the US as part of the as part of an illegal spying program, and as part of their cover, he was his adoptive child. She entered into a soccer game that she entered into a soccer team that was called the Thunderbolts. It's a different origin story in the comics, and the name Thunderbolts is kind of forced, but for what it's worth, it is an emotional tie-in to why they're called the Thunderbolts. I guess it's supposed to be funny. It's not, but you know, it's what we have. It's what we have, and it's what we have. For the most part, though, just like in real. What do you mean, just like in real life? Yes, absolutely. New Yorkers are indifferent to horrible crimes going on in their city, just like in the movie. It is entirely accurate. This is a thing that they have to that they do not give two shits about. And then only until people start getting transported into this eldritch nightmare realm as Void, because this is after they have their argument, Void awakens and then swallows half of Manhattan in order to, I guess, just to abuse his powers in essence, and everyone gets trapped in this nightmare world. But eventually, well, actually, a few things happen before then. So, so Fontaine's where is that? So Fontaine has her choppers, which I should mention are supposed to be which are supposed to be which are supposed to be these the Bell Invictus helicopters. I like that they were able to show these this like that like military technology still keeps going in these movies. But these are supposed to be OXC's helicopters, the Farah helicopter, the this Farah attack helicopter, or at least a helicopter based on it. He takes out the OXC choppers, the OXC Invictuses, and then part of that causes part of that slams into a crane, and it puts people in danger. The crash sprays debris everywhere that puts people in danger, and for the first time in forever, in literally forever, I felt something emotionally for the heroes, for the Thunderbolts, and something I really liked is all of them immediately, without a thought, going into action, saving lives because there's civilians caught in the crossfire. Immediately, instead of trying to respond to instead of just formulating a plan and waiting around, they just immediately go into action. Guardian, Yelena, Walker especially is given, I guess, his big break, in which he saves a woman from a falling slab of concrete that was going to kill both of them. And most of the other team link up and help him, where all of them have something to do where they're saving civilian lives. Guardian saves the life of a little girl, and it's all emotional, where they are presented as the new heroes, like everyone. And for the final moment, the indifference of the New Yorkers around them stops. All of them applaud them. All of them start thanking them and giving them the praise. And then the void, the nightmare realm hits them, and all of them get enveloped in the cloud, in the nightmare cloud, and no one can really do anything about it. And then comes the point where, okay, so the Thunderbolts are attempting to hide from the nightmare cloud because there really isn't anything they can do at the moment. All of them have something to do. Okay, for the most part, all of them have something to do where they are given this sort of, we're saving lives, we're being heroes, we're protecting civilians. I know it's sort of a cheap Marvel way to do it, but if I'll be damned if it wasn't unironically emotional. Unironically, legitimately one of the better parts of the movie that I legitimately enjoyed. I have no qualms. It might be slop. That moment might be manipulative, emotional slop, but I entirely enjoyed it. And for the first time in a while, I was cheering for an MCU hero. I did not give a shit beforehand. I did not care. But like I said, for the most part, most of the characters they introduced, I did not give two shits about if they lived or died. I could not care about what they did to sort of invigorate their stance and sort of make themselves the cool guys in the situation. In this one, it is just like a very much a mirror of Avengers 2012, of people just going into the fray, doing what they can to save lives, coordinating with civilians, and just acting as the heroes for whatever they can do. And I'll be damned if I didn't if I I'll be damned if I love that part. I really did enjoy that part. That scene where Bucky is flipping a rogue car over a civilian, that is included in the trailer. That is part of that scene. I guess the big, like, they all get their big breaks here where they save lives and they just be good people, and the people applaud them. The people applaud them for once, and they feel like they're doing the right thing. And then the Nightmare Cloud has a dark moment where it envelops the little girl that Red Guardian saved, and then it chases them down the street. They hide from it, and then at some point Yelena decides, the only way to end this is if I talk to him. And then, rather suicidally, or I guess just mind-numbingly, Yelena walks into the nightmare realm in order to confront Sentry, in order to confront Void. And this is the part of the movie that I seriously wish was longer. I wish a lot of the action scenes were longer. I come to movies for the gunfights. There's a reason why I like John Wick. But for the most part, this particular scene where they're all in the mine sequence, I guess they equate it to yet another game. If you are familiar in the various scenes from Black Ops 1 through Black Ops Cold War and Black Ops 6, or all Black Ops 1, Black Ops 3, Black Ops Cold War, and Black Ops 6, all of them sort of have at least one element where it's a dream sequence or a flashback sequence to where a character has to relive some kind of trauma in order to reveal hidden information that is relevant to the task at hand. Now, in many ways, the Nightmare Cloud that produced by Sentry or produced by Void, the Nightmare Cloud produced by Void is in essence that same sort of mental like, it puts you in a nightmare realm where everything, you have to relive the most traumatic moment of your life day by day, every hour until you break it out of it. Then you move on to the next most traumatic moment in your life until you find a way out. And there really isn't any way out because he's configured, like he stayed. Yelena asks him, and he stated New York ended up as a sort of incomprehensible, jumbled, eldritch mess that doesn't make any sense, and he's using parts of that to construct the memories of the people that he is actively possessing or enveloping in his cloud. And one of the jokes that I made was, Sentry over here really he really evaporated in the entirety of Manhattan in order for a woman to talk to him and in order to feel the touch of a woman. And you know what? It is entirely sympathetic because I understand. I understand where he's coming from. He is just a sensitive young man, and we would do that. We would like that. Even if we are a bit selfish in doing that, we would do that, and we would evaporate Manhattan and trap them in this nightmare dimension where they are tortured for their most traumatic event for an eternity in order for a woman to calm us down and comfort us and tell us everything's gonna be okay. Because that is what Yelena does. She fights initially through the moment in which she is considered which is considered the most traumatic moment of her life, where she lures one of her comrades to die as part of a loyalty test. Another part where she is witnessing like children being forced to become child soldiers, until she finally finds, only after 2 scenes in, she finds Sentry. She finds Bob alone in a bedroom that he constructed for himself. And okay, this is when I'm going to elaborate on missed opportunities this movie had. All of the characters here have experienced serious levels of trauma, except maybe Red Guardian. And I like it's a 2-hour, 6-minute movie. This movie should have been 3 or 4 hours. Unironically, this movie should have been at least 3 hours. Not a joke. Not a joke. Not a joke. I am being entirely serious. So many of these, it feels rushed. It feels half baked. They were concerned about the more visceral, mind-melting mind scenes. I feel like they weren't willing to show in their entirety, in their full, or they just didn't write the scripts of them. What I would have wanted is Yelena fighting and one of this guy here. No idea what they would putting Sentry in the movie with the most powerful hero being a super soldier. They rushed Sentry's story to push more movies, a sequel disguised as a film. It was ass. I didn't go to an action movie to see 20 minutes of therapy. Well, for what it's worth, I did like it. Thunderbolts saved the MCU in that opinion. And this one here, does every where's that? Personally, if they had any more powerful characters in it, then it would just be a matter of punch harder to beat him, which would have been true. If they had someone like Doctor Strange or like some kind of character that could manipulate his mind, it wouldn't be as interesting. If seeing all these characters relatively without powers take on a threat kind of like Void. And overall, this sentiment, I didn't go to an action movie to see 20 minutes of therapy. They should have taken advice from the Kojima school of thought. I like that they tried to provide the main focus being Yelena and Sentry and their relationship. Yelena and Sentry and their relationship. But for the most part, I feel like all the rest of the team could have had a scene where they fight in the worst moments of their lives. Yelena's sequence should have been longer. It should have been her fighting the Black Widows or seeing reflections of herself fight the Black Widows instead of merely, ooh, she's in a bathtub, she's drinking, ooh, she's seeing herself as a child get whipped, oh, she's seeing herself as a teenager be have relive the worst moments of her lives. It should have been her in the fight taking on or trying to escape at least from the trying to escape or fight her way through the nightmare. For Fontaine, we should have seen her in the dream. It should have been her trying to contend with her own wallowing in her own doubt of morality because of that interaction with the mafia that she had as a kid, in which her father died. Of Sentry finally understanding why she is the way that she is, in which she previously believed that that there isn't a true morality to people, there are just threats to the world. And then finally, for Winter Soldier, this could have been him being forced to relive his life, brainwashed by Hydra, and unable to adapt to life. Every moment, him losing grip and seeing Steve Rogers for the last time, him finding out on what to do with his own life and what to do with himself, and then finally U.S. Agent just being this sort of confrontation. Him instead of just merely him being, if they wanted to go into that trauma of seeing Lamar in his series, seeing Lamar die, and then releasing his catharsis out onto the terrorists that he killed. I should have for U.S. Agent, what I would have recommended is him in Afghanistan or Iraq or someplace like that, in full combat uniform, in regular combat. In the day that he got his Medal of Honor, as shown in Falcon and Winter Soldier, him and Lamar, him and Battlestar working together to just save the people's lives of the people that he cares about, him possibly like committing a war crime in order to save the lives of the men around him, and that sort of trauma that he said in character was a major part of his trauma for the most part for a lot of for a lot of what he said. They could have kept the action movie elements of them fighting their various demons, and then finally converge in on and confront Sentry. A lot of like Walker or Bucky could have been the last one. Ghost could have been the last one because she was raised in a lab and all that, and she was subject to human experimentation and the things that she had to work through and live through. Why didn't they explore all of their traumas on their own independently, and then just simply have Yelena be the first one to arrive and find Reynolds and find Bob? That was something I would have incorporated into the movie, and I would have been happy to, because it would have enhanced it, not merely extended the runtime. This movie felt way too short for what it was, and that's my main complaint. It felt too short for what it was. I wish it was longer. I wish it was more capable. I wish it addressed the things it wanted to address, and I wanted to feel that emotion that I felt between Yelena and Sentry, the way I felt for all, like, I wanted to feel, not just because I came here for Walker and Bucky. I came here, like, although that is the primary reasons I came here, I would have wanted to see Ghost's backstory. I would have wanted to see Red Guardian's backstory. I would have wanted to see Valentina's backstory, and have all of them be forced to converge on Reynolds in order to, like, sort of find his way out of his mind and entrust him. And then in that scene where he has to fight his various traumas, and where he confronts Void and has to seal away and, like, fight Void, all of them realize initially, because all of them have fought their traumas, and where there's a scene where all of them delve into Bob's mind, where it's just him being addicted to drugs, him being abused by his parents, him being subject to the medical experimentation under DeFontaine, and it is in that final one where he's being subject to the medical experiments by DeFontaine, where he meets Void and he has to fight him, and he gets in this fist fight where he's beating Void to death, and essentially, and while he's doing that, the Void starts to consume him. What I would have changed is that this sort of realization of the heroes, of where instead of, by fighting their trauma and keeping it locked away or, like, suppressing it, they are feeding the Void. They are unintentionally corrupting Bob or corrupting Sentry, and I think that would have been a much more more interesting route to take, or they have to have this moment of clarity when they're being held back by the Void and the telekinesis, basically at the end of the movie, Yelena breaks through first, and tries to hold back. She hugs Sentry, and she finds, like, she has to hold him back from hurting Void any longer. A lot of the other ones have to join in and bring back and hold back Sentry. They hold back Sentry in order to keep him from being consumed by Void in his attempt to kill Void, in his misguided attempt to kill Void. And at the end of it, all of it literally returns to normal on that day. Sentry is able to suppress Void, but he loses his memory of the incident. And overall, he loses his memory of the incident, and all of them are back on the streets of New York, confronting DeFontaine. And at the end of the movie, finally, Fontaine has set up this sort of journalism press thing, in which, in order to save face for the destruction and the damage that she's caused, she hastily claims that the Thunderbolts are in fact the new Avengers. And instead of protesting, instead of trying to clarify the situation, in order to, I guess, reclaim their name so they don't have to be on the run anymore and to save face, they accept the titles of the new Avengers and take in Bob. They take in Sentry, although he's not Sentry fully yet. Valentina does technically gets off scot-free, although she is now subject to basically everything the new Avengers want, everything the Thunderbolts want. So the asterisk in the title of Thunderbolts, this is supposed to be this asterisk represents the new Avengers. In a sense, in essence, the Thunderbolts presented here are the new Avengers. It gets tiring after a while, so I still think I'm gonna refer to them as the Thunderbolts. I got an idea, superpower Black Ops. In essence, this is what, like, big yike. If you want superpower Black Ops, this is what it is. This is what it is. This is what it, like, tried to be, at least. That's what Thunderbolts is. Overall, again, like I said, the movie is not perfect, but I enjoyed it. I will not lie to you. I enjoyed it. This is the first Marvel movie, MCU movie in a long, long while that I cared about with my heart, with my soul, with, like, where I could relate to every one of the characters. And a really astute observation that I don't put all of my credence into, but I thank him for making that sort of observation. Movies tend to come out at a time when they need to, and in a time when we are very Menhera, when we are very Menhera, very mentally ill. This movie comes out and lets us sort of air out our catharsis of dealing with those problems, dealing with those issues, both inside and outside. As a result, and the way that it handles those issues, yeah, you could deride it for being a therapy session or being like a realistic panic attack for 20 minutes. But for what it's worth, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the visuals. Besides my issues with the lighting, the visuals were great. And I wish more Marvel movies were filmed the way that it was. I enjoyed the characters even when they weren't written. I liked the ending, even if it was a bit abrupt. And at the end of the day, if you wish a movie could be longer, fundamentally it is not a bad movie. And if my main complaint, the main reason why I would dislike this movie is that it simply isn't long enough, I think it's a pretty good movie. I think it genuinely is. I would recommend it. Not superheroes, superpowers, big difference. Yeah, I kind of understand that. But for the most part, these are meant to be super soldiers, with the exception of Sentry. These are meant to be superheroes for the most part. These are meant to be. These are meant to be super soldiers primarily. First part, these are Black Ops, former military assassins, that kind of thing. That kind of thing. Where is that? But yeah, some kind of some. I just like the movie. I wish they played more into the sort of all of them are assassins and are working together against some kind of military force. I wish there was more presence of that. I wish there was more encounters with OXE and them, like, displaying their powers in the real world. I wish there was more of them, like, just being action heroes and, like, getting into gunfights and all that. But I also wish there was an extended sequence where they were forced to confront themselves as part of, where all of them were forced to confront themselves as part of Void's nightmare world. That is something I would have entirely enjoyed. For the most part, and the only time that I will even forgive John Walker and, like, my favorite character John Walker here being an asshole is that I wish they approached it with the angle of he's a dickhead to everyone because that is his catharsis, because he is suffering on the inside, like, for that's why I like him more than Steve Rogers, because he is very clearly suffering. He is relatable for that. He is relatable in the way that he is a very troubled person. And that's why I like it. He's a very troubled person with a very troubled mind. And I wish they delved into that trauma a little bit more. You could have gotten those mental action scenes, those more interesting action scenes where he's fighting, where they're all fighting constructs of their mind. For example, I guess Guardians could have been one of the easiest to get through because his like most of his memories were him being betrayed and being put in a gulag, which is I guess more than merely seeing war or I don't know. It's the ways that they could have explored these characters and really introduce us to them one by one was a missed opportunity, but I'm glad it was there. I'm glad it was there. Overall, I'm glad it was there. Overall, it's the first Marvel movie in a while that wasn't slop. And if it was slop, it was the kind of sloppy Joe ground beef that I would happily enjoy. That I would have as this is comfort food. The other stuff is junk food. This is comfort food without a doubt. And I entirely recommend it. I can't say I didn't enjoy it because it was good. It was good. I did enjoy my time. And so if you have any what I consider and okay, so the more important part is this an okay, you know what? I'm gonna have another joke that I want to get out of the way that I guess really sums up what I think about the Thunderbolts as characters. If Avengers if Hololive Myth was the Avengers, or at least if Hololive English was the original Avengers, then the Thunderbolts are Phase Connect. That's the kind of comparison I would like to make. Oh, that's the kind of comparison I would like to make. If the Avengers were if the Avengers were Hololive, the Thunderbolts or as they're calling them the new Avengers, the Thunderbolts are Phase Connect. This is all Menhera people. These are all like mentally unstable, troubled people that are entrusted to give comfort and save lives of other people. And that's that's how it is to me. And that's why I like it. That's part of the appeal. This is what Phase Connect would look like if they were superheroes instead of a VTubing agency. And now that I think of it, DeFontaine makes a really funny stand-in for Sakuna, or possibly Dizzy, or like. And something that I also noticed is I guess relating to TF2. See I had the administrator from TF2, and you have oh, where's that? You have Defontaine. Where's that? Yeah, there we go. You don't see the resemblance? This is the other reason why I have TF2 up. That sort of similarity. You think you could do Children of Men? I'm not sure at the moment. I'm not sure. I do know which movie I will be reviewing next, and that will also be a new release. So overall, we have that. And I think for the most part, where is this a stepping stone for the result of Marvel? Because I want to see more of this. I do want to see this new Avengers. I want to see more of the Thunderbolts, and I want to see where their story goes. Well, the issue being, the MCU is kind of in a fucked up place right now. They don't really know what they're doing. They don't really know what they're doing at the moment. Yeah, Fantastic Four First Steps, Avengers Doomsday, Spider-Man, and then another Avengers movie. I don't think they're in full understanding of I don't think they're in full understanding of what they want to do with the MCU. And like hopefully Thunderbolts can be considered a technical rebirth because it is a new Avengers. In a way, I guess for a lot of people, Avengers 2012 is the true birth of the MCU instead of Iron Man 1. But overall, I wish Thunderbolts could be that sort of second Avengers, that they could work with. Gonna be honest, I think this should have stopped after Endgame. On one hand, I hate the majority of the movies that came out after Endgame, and it would have made sense to stop. On the other hand, characters like Walker and like characters like what we did with most of the Spider-Man after, what they did with and what they did with Guardians, and most importantly, what they did with Thunderbolts is proof that if competently written enough, the MCU still could survive. It still has a place in the world. It still has a place in that we have for us. Thunderbolts is not a perfect movie. Um, it is not a perfect movie. It is not the best movie at all of Marvel. It is not. I would not even consider it. It is the best of Phase 6. At least it is better than the slop that it came before it. But um, in terms of movies, I'm not sure if I would put it above my grades of Civil War and Winter Soldier. But that being said, it's not in the top 3. It would be in the top 10, but it's not in the top 3 or the top 5. I would give like out of if I were to give it a star rating, it would be 4 stars. It would be 4 stars because it is a deeply imperfect movie. It is a deeply flawed movie. But I think even with me mising over being miserable over what we got and what we didn't get, at the end of the day, it's I guess this sort of loving irony that Thunderbolts in a meta sense. This movie has a lot of problems that just don't work, and that don't work and are missed opportunities. But that's what the Thunderbolts as the movie, that's what it's about. The Thunderbolts is imperfect as a movie, but it is imperfect the way the Thunderbolts are as characters. If you get what I mean. Like hopefully they're not gonna fucking fuck it up with the I don't know, with Fantastic Four, because I know that's coming up next. I know that's coming up next. Hopefully they don't screw it up. They probably will, unfortunately, with a lot of the news that we've been seeing. But for what it's worth, I could enjoy Thunderbolts. It is a 4. It is a 4 out of 10. It is. I mean, it is a 4 out of 5. It would be probably an 8 out of 10. I would recommend you to see it. I would recommend you like if I 4 out of 5, maybe 7 to 8 out of 10. But for all of its flaws, for all of my misgivings about it, for all of my issues that I still have with it, I would recommend it. I would in fact recommend it. That would be around at least a 75, and that would be a 75% on if Rotten Tomatoes wasn't corrupt as shit, that the 75% would have been the score that I would have given it. So in general, I'm looking at a lot of these. It's it could be better. It could be a lot better, but I'm glad we got it. I am glad we got it. And like I said, if Avengers 2012 was HoloLive Myth, then at the start, then Thunderbolts was Phase Connect Origins at the start. For those who like VTubers, that's what it is to me, and that's why I love it so much. New Avengers or Guardian, and yeah, and overall, that's what I'll take away from it. Go and see it if you had any sort of attachment, or if you just want to see a movie in theaters, because this has to be experienced in theaters, especially in the summer movie season. You have to see it. I would absolutely recommend seeing it overall. I enjoyed it, and you would too. And then after that, after that, all that being said, I will react to I'm doing React Slop. I'm doing React Slop again. What is it? Where is that? Critical. Because he apparently did not like it. He apparently did not. Okay, hold on. Let me pause the BGM to see his take. to see his take because he is I have my disagreements with Drinker. I still subscribe to him. I think he's annoying on a lot. I think he's lost part of his touch, especially after seeing his after he rated the Fallout show to be positive, which was absolutely not a positive. But you know what? We have 8 minutes of our time. Let's
Out
keep
of all the
going.
Marvel movies to come out in this tour, out of all the Marvel movies to come out in recent years, Thunderbolts is definitely one of them. In fact, it's probably the one I've been looking forward to the least. Not because I hate it or anything, but because I feel
The Drinker doesn't like 2022 Batman movie. Well, yeah, and that's where I feel like I got the wrong impression because everyone I've talked to, even the film buffs, even the people that just like are that have their issues with it, like that have their issues with it, they recommend it. I have not seen 2022 Batman yet. But I think he changed his mind on Fallout. Hopefully he did because because Fallout show was just a piece of shit. I like
absolutely nothing towards it. It's the movie equivalent of an annual dental checkup. You know it's coming, but it's not like you're pumped up to get started on it or anything.
maybe it's different because I had an attachment to at least one of the
And why
characters.
would you be? It's just another by the numbers team up movie featuring a bunch of B and C list characters that most
Well, that's the
people can
point.
barely remember from
That's
films
kind of the point. That's kind of the point,
and
Drinker.
TV shows most of us didn't watch, taking on a nebulous threat that's poorly explained in a series of action scenes that look like they've been done a million times before. Not exactly compelling stuff. But is it
I mean,
really as bad as we expected? Or
I wouldn't say that. I would say the cinematography is generally better than most other Marvel movies.
does Thunderbolt suck
And you can really see because um let me show off the Thunderbolt another element of the Thunderbolts trailer. Yeah, the absolute cinema meme. Whatever, I don't care about those. But it's writers and director of Beef. My parents watched that. I didn't give a shit about it. Cinematographer The Green Knight. I did hear good things about it. The production design of Hereditary. I'm not familiar with that. I generally because they really were banking on this being a in fact cinematic experience. I guess this is their attempt at shooting back at Martin Scorsese after he said like Marvel movies are just like a theme park ride. And for the most part, he does have a point. That's how most Marvel movies are. But in this, I feel like at least like in an attempt to get back at them, they ended up putting some effort in it. And the composers of Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is what also attracted me to it. I loved Everything Everywhere All at Once. While I disagree with several of the movie's themes, like because I consider myself an anti-existentialist and an anti-absurdist, I still feel like it's a very excellent movie. And Thunderbolts easily could have been Marvel's Everything Everywhere All at Once if they just tried hard enough and to confront and went in on heavier emotional themes about the characters instead of just merely being a team up movie. If they divided the characters, split them up, and had them fight their own battles one by one, bit by bit, the way that they were, like it would have provided a really interesting contrast because in the original Avengers movie, the characters had to gradually team up before fighting together. In this one, the characters team like are forced to team up immediately, for it to work together immediately. And then when they don't have that support group, they have to fight their own battles. And then sometimes, so at some points, the battles merge. The battles merge, and that they keep merging until they finally converge on Yelena and Sentry. That would have been excellent as a movie. It would have been the progressive sort of. It was a reflection where they have to fight, where they have to find each other apart. Um, Instead of working together as a team at the end, they're split apart, forced to fight alone, and then realize how much they need each other while making peace with their traumas on their own. That would have been an excellent movie. That I would have bumped it up to at least like a 9 out of 10, or at least a 4.5 out of 5, or out of 4.5 out of 5 if that was the case. But this, because I feel like Everything Everywhere All at Once and like taking inspiration from that would have been excellent. That would have been beautiful even for a Marvel movie to do that. But overall, that's what I think.
somehow managed to pull off a
The Avengers are not coming. Who will keep people safe?
Yeah, this year is Century. Yeah, I didn't like that scene. It just wasn't necessary. Like as like parts of the dream sequence that wasn't necessary, like parts of the dream sequence weren't necessary. I just wish they I like this was all lined up to be a serious Marvel movie, and I wish they made it even more serious. Yeah, they don't mention at the end that the asterisk stands for the asterisk at the asterisk at the end represents that they're supposed to be the new Avengers. Kind of like the rename, kind of like those kinds of like hero renames that they've been doing in some TV shows. I still like to think that their tagline that the tagline of the asterisk is because the Avengers aren't there, because I like it that way.
surprise win. Well, let's find out together, shall we? The movie begins with discount Black Widow, who's feeling sad and worthless because there's not much going on in her life outside of her work. And if that's not a neat encapsulation of modern feminism, frankly, I don't know what is. Anyway, after completing her latest mission to blow up a lab in Southeast Asia, she's sent by discount Selena Meyer to infiltrate a high-security vault in the middle of nowhere where an enemy agent is about to steal a bunch of classified secrets. Now, a normal person might think it's a bit suspicious that discount Selena Meyer apparently knows exactly when and where she's gonna get robbed, but well, I guess discount Black Widow isn't a normal person. But
Well, yeah, okay, that is a fair criticism. All of them should be realistically on edge. All of them realistically should be on edge, at least in order to at least let the curiosity get the better of them, or to find out what's going on.
when
At
she
least
does
have
get there,
some kind of decoy where there is an actual active robbery where they were, I don't know.
she finds John Walker,
I would have
Ghost,
done
and
that.
Task Manager waiting for her. It turns
Task
out they've
manager.
all
Anyways, so we have if we're gonna do that, then we have we have Smug Alana here. We have Smug Alana. We have the best character. We have Heavy from Team Fortress 2. We have female spy from Team Fortress 2. We have other female spy from TF2, and we have the other best character. Anyway, we're gonna
been
make
sent
it.
here to kill each other in a kind of circular firing squad because discount Selena Meyer is now under congressional investigation and has decided to erase all evidence of her dodgy activities, including everyone that she employs. Once they're sealed inside the vault, a self-destruct timer activates to vaporize the whole place.
Not a great plan.
Wow, it's lucky that they all happened to arrive here at the same exact time, otherwise this never would have worked. It's even more lucky that there was a 2-minute countdown.
Maybe they could have like entered in through separate entrances or some kind of something like that, something along those lines. This was all like explore different parts of the facility that were rigged to blow at separate times.
Thus giving them fair warning and plenty of time to escape. It's even luckier that the power source for the sonic barrier preventing Ghost from unlocking the doors just so happens to be in the room with them.
Really?
Wow, everything's
That is a fair criticism. They did admittedly need to get them like working together very quickly.
just coming
So
up
that is something
thunderbolts
fair.
right now, isn't it? So they make it out just in the nick of time, naturally. Just coming up thunderbolts right now, isn't it? So they make it out just in the nick of time, naturally, and it turns out they've got a new friend with them. This is Bob, a test subject for an experimental new program to create the Sentry. Basically Marvel's answer to Superman. The longer Bob's conscious, the more his powers start to manifest until he's captured by discount Selena Meyer and brought back to New York to be unveiled to the public. Luckily though, Red Guardian shows up in a limo because he overheard discount Selena Meyer's entire plan when she was riding in his car, because I guess supervillains are happy to divulge their most intimate and damaging secrets in front of complete strangers. What are you retarded? There's just all kinds of convenient luck happening
Yeah, okay. To be fair, that is another valid criticism that is a plot hole that is easy to pick
in
out.
this movie. So the gang heads to New York to save Bob, but he goes a bit crazy and turns against everyone, so Discount Selena Meyer activates a kill switch, but then he comes back to life as Angry Bob and makes a big cloud of sadness that swallows up New York City. But that's okay because Discount Black Widow and the gang go into the sadness cloud and help Bob defeat Angry Bob by having a good old cry, and then everything goes back to normal and somehow they become the new Avengers. I've said on various open bars that I expected Thunderbolts to be a relatively decent, by-the-numbers, and ultimately forgettable action team-up movie that would probably fail to make much of a splash at the box office. But boy, was I wrong on that one. This movie is actually surprisingly shit, and the biggest problems stem from the complete tonal whiplash that it gives you.
I feel like Drinker is genuinely I don't know. Well, I haven't trusted the guy's film reviews for a while. For the guy who claims to be anti-woke, but never saw a lick of the ridiculous anti-capitalism or like anti-Americanism going on in the Fallout TV show. For him to just nitpick something as sincere, at least an attempt to be sincere as this, like he does have some points as he does have at some point some good points about about the tonal whiplash, but for the most part, it feels relatively consistent. You have like Guardian is supposed to be the comic relief. They're all supposed to hate each other for some reason, and for reasons that are kind of quietly explained. The movie could have been a lot worse.
On the one hand, there's actually a pretty interesting attempt to explore the impact of personal trauma, depression, failure, a loss of self-worth, and a search for meaning and fulfillment in life. There's hints of this with Yelena and the rest of the gang, broadly mirroring the trauma that haunts and ultimately threatens to overcome Bob. And holy shit, the performance by Lewis Pullman is by far the best part of this entire movie. The guy is able to switch from befuddled innocence to haunted victim to a terrifying godlike entity in the space of a single scene. And if anything, I wanted to see more of this shit. The problem is the movie
that I do agree with.
have time to give this stuff the narrative depth that it needs, and it ignores most of the struggles of the rest of the team altogether.
Yeah, that part I wish that part I wish they did in fact. That is again something that I've ranted about before. They should have explored the other team as well, not just Yelena.
Why? Because we need to make more time for Marvel humor, protracted action scenes, pointless
But I liked the action scene. What are you talking about?
exposition, references to stuff that most people didn't even watch, and more Marvel humor. And this brings me on to by far
It wasn't even like it isn't even the tier of Marvel humor that to the essential. There were times when it did get tiring, especially the shitting on John Walker thing, which wasn't funny at all, which was just really just cringe and evidence of the writers hating us. But for the most part, I barely noticed the Marvel humor. It and for the first time in a while, it felt like it understood that what it was saying or what it was making fun of was in fact very cringe. That was the entire point because you're supposed to be flawed people. That's not an entire criticism, especially when this was, for the most part, taken more seriously than most other Marvel movies.
are the biggest problem with Thunderbolts. It's a tiny kernel of an interesting and serious idea buried under a mountain of all the usual shit that blights Marvel movies. It's like they heard all of the memes about the formulaic nature of their films, and instead of correcting themselves to counter it, they decided to lean even harder into it out of pure fucking spite.
Yeah, this I don't know where he's coming from because again, tonally, this is a much more serious Marvel movie, especially like it is a far cry from what he might describe. Like a lot of other Marvel movies are excessive both visually and in terms of dialogue in terms of failed humor. This is relatively slim on that. I don't know where he's coming from in that regard.
Not since She-Hulk have I watched
Joss Whedon and his consequences, yeah. But for the most part, like at least it acknowledges that the humor it is trying to make, that the humor it is trying to dig into is in fact cringe. It acknowledges that. It is fully aware of that. And that's something that like I don't take that, at least that I feel that sometimes I feel with them for the most part. It was for the most part, it is not what
A
he's
Marvel
describing.
project trying so desperately hard to be funny and failing so spectacularly.
It didn't. That's the thing. It didn't all the time.
The character development in this movie is completely fucked. Ghost is a character that I barely even remember from Ant-Man 2, so this would have been a perfect time to give her some actual personality and a narrative arc. Instead, she does almost nothing throughout the whole movie. Her powers are nerfed whenever they'd be inconvenient to the plot, which is most of the time to be fair, and I was left wondering why she's even in the film. John Walker exists for no other reason than to be wrong about everything and constantly mocked and belittled by the strong female characters around him. You know,
This I did have a problem with, but at the very least, I credit the writers for giving him good moments, for having him giving him good character moments, and ironically, in the parts that where he did succeed, he was entirely in his right.
oh, like basically every other Marvel movie since Endgame. Red Guardian's still an obnoxiously loud moron, proving the point that just shouting stuff really loud isn't a substitute for humor. Bucky's here because they couldn't think of anything else to do with his character, and as for Ass Blaster, well, all I'll say is don't get too attached to her.
Oh
Yeah,
no! What happened?
yeah, that was not a good
And
play.
for the life of me, I'll never understand why Marvel keep trying to make Yelena a thing. I mean, what exactly are we supposed to find appealing about this character? She's
Well, it works because it. Well, Drinker says this, and then doesn't. I feel like he isn't. Maybe it's because of my own biases in going into the movie, and like I said before, it is not a perfect movie, but for the most part, her character wasn't the problem. You for the like they managed to take a very bland and obnoxious and sort of just fuck off character from a movie that I watched and didn't like, and made her sympathetic and made that emptiness, that numbness into a reason why she's like that, and make her into something that's valuable. I don't just I feel like there's a lot of like Drinker claims he didn't care about the movie and that he only saw it to review it. I feel like I am genuinely beginning to feel like he wasn't there wasn't enough faith put in this. He genuinely he deliberately drained himself of his own faith and just has some kind of unharbored spite. Look, I get it. I get it. A lot of Marvel movies are shit. This wasn't one of them. This tried not to be, and he's accusing them of being the exact same thing when it clearly isn't. I feel like he walked in with he walked in full of spite and walked out full of spite. Again, there are a lot of movies where that deserves to happen, but this wasn't one of them. And I don't know where
basically a
he's coming from
shorter,
half of the time on
dumpier,
these.
less appealing version of Black Widow with a shitty Russian accent and played by a disinterested Florence Pugh who practically faxes in her performance. She is way better than movies like this, and she knows it.
We're better than you, and we know it.
You know, there's a phenomenon here in my country that we call the Scottish cringe, a kind of inherited cultural embarrassment that we all feel because we all know we're a bit shit these days. We never say it out loud and we don't really admit it even to ourselves, but deep down we all feel it. And the reason I bring this up is that, well, Thunderbolts is a perfect example of what I hereby dub the Marvel cringe. Watching this movie, I was struck by this weird feeling of embarrassment, not just for the people making slop like this, but for me as the audience. Watching a bunch of aging actors dressed up in their goofy outfits, reciting the hackneyed dialogue and the lame jokes, the physics-defying action scenes and the overdramatic villains. It's like watching a teenager who's still playing with action figures, or a woman in her 30s still listening to Taylor Swift songs, or a middle-aged man still going to nightclubs. All of them stunted, unable or unwilling to accept that the world around them is changing and it's time to move on now.
I feel I can't help. Well, I think it really is pretty clear that from Drinker, from at least when it comes to Drinker, there is some pretty clear bias going on. Maybe it's just his desensitization of Marvel overall, again, I don't fault him for that because again, 90% or like 95% of everything between this and Endgame has been total complete shit. But his I think he just wants to say the same thing over and over again. This is kind of like giving me the same thing that he did when he like gave Fallout a positive review. He was looking so hard for something to take the edge off of him maybe I'm evidence of this too. Maybe he was unfamiliar with the games and he because he clearly is and he was looking for something that he could finally find something that he could claim that he is that he's okay with even when what he was watching clearly wasn't. And in this one, like a decent movie, like a half decent movie that proves that Marvel is in fact trying, is to him the opposite, which it is to him an insult when they are in fact trying to do better.
The MCU practically defined the cinematic zeitgeist of the 2010s, and love it or hate it, you can't deny the enormous success it had, but that was a long time ago now. Times have changed and the zeitgeist has moved on, and movies like Thunderbolts now feel like dated, unfashionable holdovers from a different era, from a franchise that can't or won't accept that it just isn't that relevant anymore. A bottom of the barrel kind of movie, made to fill a release slot and keep the MCU grinding forward until the inevitable reboot comes along to start the whole process over again, scraping together whatever crap happened to be available and throwing it against the wall in the vein.
Yeah, the issue is with with the wider MCU. It's not with this movie. It is not with this movie. Again, this is why I described it as a potential rebirth for Marvel. If they cut everything off after this, if they if Fantastic Four ends up being not fucked, and then they cut off everything else. They cut off everything else and know when like how to approach these characters. This could be the start of something good, but I think it's the refusal in everyone to believe in it that is gonna be its downfall. I want this movie to succeed. I enjoyed it, but the grim reality is, I guess, sort of, it's not like everything after it is not going to succeed for good reason.
I suspect that this one won't, making 2 failures in a row for Marvel this year. Now it all hangs on Fantastic Four, and honestly, I wouldn't want to put odds on that movie succeeding either. As for Thunderbolts, I recommend you save your time and money and go do.
I do not. If you need something to watch while waiting for better movies, this one is a recommend. If you have any attachment to any of these characters or invested any of it as I am, or you just want a nice theatrical experience, I could not disagree more.
Something better.
We did go drinking afterwards, though.
Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Shut up. I think you should unfuck yourself before you make a next review. Because, again, maybe it is personal bias. Maybe it is just him venting about his modern dislike for the MCU. But I wouldn't trust as much as I like his content and as much as I admire him as a writer, I just wouldn't trust his film critic opinions anymore. For the most part, I still would. Even with the criticisms and all, I still entirely would recommend. Thunderbolts, just even if it is for the pure fact of this might be the last good Marvel movie we ever get. This might be the last Marvel movie that we ever get that isn't shit. And for what it's worth, it could be the rebirth of something new, and I enjoyed it. It was something I could get immersed in. If he couldn't get immersed in it, then I don't know what to say, because it worked for me. That's what I can say. It worked for me. I liked the movie for all of its many, many flaws. I liked it, and if there's anything you should break your Marvel boycott with, it's this movie. It is Thunderbolts. And I think I've said my piece. I think I've said my piece for the most part. Anyways, so going off after that, I will be streaming tomorrow. I will be finishing up VA11 Hala. So That will be the stream. The stream link for that will be up soon. For the most part, yeah. I think this is all I have for y'all today. I really appreciate everyone who came. Thank you, Dantiok Fanboy. Thank you, Big Yike. Thank you, Spinus Illusory. And nice of you to finally show up in a stream. And thank you, Terrible Artists. But yeah, I think I'll find someone to raid. I did it. My end of the movie. My end of the stream thing is, go ahead and watch it. Go ahead and watch it. If you need something to watch, go. Why not? Like, get out, go to the theater, and have a nice experience. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who came. Otsu love, and I will be seeing you guys next time. Hold on. Let's see who's on. Kirsha, Maidman. Honestly, like, I guess something that I have realized is with the attention that Marvel Rivals has gotten. I do not care about Marvel Rivals. I really don't care about anything like that, especially like unless it's for like the hot characters. But overall, I feel like if Marvel if the people over there realized the kind of potential that they have to re-gear the series into a lesser but more of a dedicated fan base, like utilizing the spin on Marvel Rivals, then this could be a genuine, troubled but honest rebirth. An honest welcome rebirth for the MCU. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who came. I will be raiding into Hanti Miles, if you know who he is. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone who came. I will be streaming tomorrow at this time again. So, and take care of yourselves. We are raiding into Hanti Miles. Thank you. I'll see you guys next time.